This is a perfect example right here.
You get into an argument with your wife and boom, she flips that moment you once made yourself vulnerable with her right back on your face. It takes a very special woman to resist the urge of not using your insecurities against you in an argument. Hurt people, and women are experts at this. Always keep a healthy distance between you and her. You are the king, and His Majesty never allows his subjects to become too familiar with him. This is how you maximize her respect for you. And if she does cross that line, punish her. How? Follow me to find out in the next video.
Cringe.
And there we go.
Oh my gosh.
And there we have it. So, what are your thoughts, Mahdi?
I mean, there's so much to unpack there. Like what did he say? He said it takes a very special woman to not use your weakness against you. So it's the implication there is like women are like what inherently manipulative and snaky in that aspect. What comes to my mind is, man, who are you picking? Like if this is just his life advice, he must. I don't know. Like, are your wives just always manipulating you and like you have this distance? Like maybe pick people who don't use your insecurities that you open up to them about when you're vulnerable against you.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying this earlier again. Like this attitude is not even something that's necessarily new. Like I've heard this before. Like a lot of older guys, especially, and by older I mean like 60 plus. They'll tell you like some of these same things, like, oh, don't be like super vulnerable with your wife because the minute she gets a chance to use it against you, she's gonna throw it back in your face. So to your question, it's like, okay, who are y'all picking as wives that they have this, inclination? And if they do, and if someone does have an inclination, could it be coached out of them? And I think maybe that's what he was talking about with like the Punisher part at the end. It's just like extremely cringe in the way that he
very cringe.
Extremely cringe in the way that he like framed it. Again, because like these are things that happen in everyday relationships with everyone. If there's a certain behavior that someone is doing with you and you don't like that behavior, they're doing to you and you don't like that behavior, you'll do one of two things, and usually it's a combination of both. You'll either tell them, hey, I don't like that, knock it off, or you'll start responding to them in a specific way after they do that behavior to get them to stop doing that behavior.
Yeah.
Like you'll try to condition their behavior, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times these things happen in tandem. There's not necessarily anything wrong with it. There's not anything wrong with it. Especially if you're like communicating these things. But it's just the framing of like a king and his subjects.
I'm about to say that's the second part, right?
Yeah.
Like that's honestly, that's an incorrect framing of a marriage. Like
That's
a husband
also-
and wife aren't king and subject. If you're gonna use the king analogy, king and queen is probably a lot more appropriate.
Because the person who married the king was the queen. It wasn't a subject.
Yeah, I don't know
They're
where
not a subject.
you're not just some subject.
Yeah, exactly.
And we even we just took down like a couple of verses, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but just like a couple of verses about marriage here. This is Surah 30, verse 21. Bismillah. And of his signs is that he created you from yourselves, mates, that you may find tranquility in them, and he placed between you affection and mercy. Indeed, that are signs for a people who give thought. And then Surah 2, Ayah 187, they are clothing for you, and you are clothing for them. Talking about the husband and wife. It's like, and then we have all these other hadith that allude
Like
to things like help out your wife around the house.
There's clearly like a closeness, like a bond and a closeness as being referred to there.
Yeah.
And like that's not
a distance of a subject. Like
yeah, exactly.